Right, thank you for staying with us, being patient. Of course, our panelists are still with us and we'll be getting to them shortly. You're watching Kivumbi 2022. We're looking at the politics of intolerance. Just why are our politics fashioned this way? And is there anything that can be done between now and the 2022 general elections that will make it any better than what we have seen in previous cycles? Michael Kivumbi is here and he'll be helping us take a look at some of the data. And earlier I saw you just go through some of the commission. Seemingly they're coming up with, or they've come up with distinctly similar recommendations
and proposals that have not been implemented. We have a commission, for example, that was commissioned in 1999, but the report was only implemented in 2002. But for now and for tonight, I'd like to go through a few, and especially the Waki Commission report that is well known. So that's where we begin tonight.
Great, and I'll be seeing you with the panel shortly.
All right, in a few minutes.
Thank you.
We'll do that. All right, let's begin tonight again with some of the commission findings, and most important for me tonight, let's begin with the Waki commissions, because it had findings that should have been implemented, but as always, they weren't implemented, or they have been implemented in piecemeal, and Parliament is largely blamed for some of this. So the first thing that the Waki Commission of Inquiry recommended or found as a cause of election violence and the explosion of election violence was politicization and proliferation of violence. That's the first one. Growing power and personalization of power around the presidency. Perhaps that was addressed in the 2010 Constitution that decentralized the powers, and we had devolution. So that was another reason. The other reason that they found was historic marginalization. And of course, there was a growing population of poor and unemployed Kenyans. So that was basically poverty and unemployment in the other slide. But let's move ahead now and try and distinctly look at various aspects of electoral intolerance. And the first one here is election is hate speech as a vice. Now, this is taken care under Section 13(1) of the NCIC Act. I'll just read and try and compress it, what it means. So this is a use of threatening, abusive, or insulting words or even behavior via the following: display of any written material to achieve the above in white, publication or distribution of written material. Let's go ahead. Still to achieve the what's above. Let's see the next slide. Presenting or directing the performance of the public performance, overplay, still to achieve the above, that's abusive or insulting words or behavior. And of course, there's distributing, showing, or playing a recording of visual images, or lastly, providing or producing or even directing a program, still to achieve this, an abusive or insulting words or behavior. That's Section 13(1) of the NCIC Act. Let's take a look at the other slide that explains this, and this is with intent now. Once you do what I've told you on the other slide, your intention must be to stir up ethnic hatred. Apart from that, it should just be likely to stir up ethnic hatred. So whatever I showed you in the previous slide must have this intention expressly for it to be captured under Section 13(1) of the NCIC Act. Let's take a look at our other slides. All right, now it's important because over time, since 1991, 97, 2002, 2007, 8, of course, 2013 and 2017, there have been politicians especially who've been indicted because of hate speech. I want to take you to the most recent, that's March 2021. Gladys Wanga, Honorable Millicent Omanga, Aisha Jumwa, and Faisal Bada. These were indicted in the year 2021, and the reason for their indictment was, of course, statements that were made. Still, in March of 2021, we had Honorable John Waluke, we had Honorable Fred Kapondi, and these are just statistics of politicians and who are described as merchants of hate speech and division, and the commission moved to stop them, and Honorable Benjamin Wasiali. There's still others that we are bringing up. Let's look at Honorable Charles Were was among them, Chris Omalwa, and of course Senator Cleo. Now there is MPs were summoned by the NCIC for questioning over the violence that rocked the county. Their counties emerged in the by-elections that were across their county. And of course, they were summoned and they were questioned. Let's go to the other slide. And this was 2001. This was under Reverend Samuel Kobia, who was at NCIC. September 2020, just a year before then, we had just two, Johanna Ngeno and, of course, Oscar Sudi, abusive words, still under hate speech in 2020. We're still looking at more of the politicians that were indicted because of hate speech. We'll take you now to June 2010. This is very interesting. Look at the people on the board. Honorable Fred Kapondi, Joshua Kutunyi, Wilfred Machage, and Honorable William Ruto. Then he was minister in the government. If you look at the year 2010, it tells a story. They were campaigning against the Constitution, and that's why they made these political utterances, and that's how they made it to the board tonight. Let's see if we have another slide that can explain this. October 2019. We mixed them, we've got to 2010, but now back to 2019. Honorable Junet Mohammed and Honorable Ishad Sumra. Still hate speech, words that are likely to stir conflicts. They were the two in 2019. Now we want to go to our last slide because we need to join our guests. Let's see what we have there. All right, 2016. Now this was a mixture of both Jubilee and NASA members of parliament. Moses Kuria, Ferdinand Waitito, Kimani Ngujire. Let's look at the other members of parliament who were indicted in 2016 because of hate speech. As I said, there were a mix of Jubilee and, of course, ODM. Do we have the next slide? All right, we have a machine problem, but these are the other ones now. Those ones were from Jubilee. Now, these ones were from ODM, Honorable Tibo Thibosire, Junet Mohammed once again, and Aisha Juma 2016. They were all in ODM. Now, we're taking a look at our last slide now. So, William Kabogo, 2015 November, he was also indicted on hate speech. Now, these are our statistics for tonight on the politicians, having explained for you the parameters, what NCIC considered. These were the politicians that have been indicted so far. There are several of them. Others have managed to apologize, but most of them have gotten with a slap on the wrist. And of course, there's a lot of complaints about what else NCIC will have done. There is that call that the NCIC needs to be given greater powers to be able to prosecute. So all those questions we are putting tonight to our panel who are already seated here. Lady now, and gentlemen, thank you for being patient. We have an hour now to speak about what's happening in the country. I'll give it to Akisa.
And thank you very much, and perhaps it's good that I'm able to balance this table now. Asanteni sana for being with us. I want to start off with a comment that I've just gotten on my phone here from Mugambi Kiai from Article 19, and he says, the people are not the problem with political intolerance. They are a problem. Look at what Mishuki did to the previously immoral matatu industry. Lack of or selective law enforcement is one side of the problematic coin. The other side is a misuse of repressive laws. And perhaps I think it's a good place to start. Yeah. Felix, your thoughts on Mugambi Kiai's comment there?
No, Mugambi is right to a larger extent. And it's actually the discussion that we were having off the cuff, I think, that essentially the way institutions conduct themselves, the way we enforce and the rule of law, for example, and constitutionalism. If these institutions were to do their work, like, for example, the example that I gave in 2002 with the Kivuitu-led Electoral Commission of Kenya, ECK, and going back to what we said before the break, that the proximate trigger to electoral violence that politicians have routinely taken advantage of is that they know that the integrity of the elections itself cannot be vouched for.
It's questionable.
It's questionable. Now, once they proceed from that premise, then usually what they do is to layers and layers or various causes that cumulatively compromise that electoral process. Of course, it's not the role of the IEBC only. All other agencies must play their role. Now, with respect to repressive laws, how we selectively applied them, I think the best example would be what happened in 2017 general elections, where in areas that were traditionally opposition, Luo Nyanza, for example, remember the disproportionate deployment of police officers, and both at the first election, August 8th, and the repeat presidential elections, where there was very serious what happened in Migori, what happened in Homa Bay, Kisumu, and things like that. That was a selective deployment of security personnel or the use of repressive laws, because there was no such deployment in other parts of the country. So to a large extent, I agree with Mugambi Kiai. So it's how we universally apply the law, but also the institutions must play their part. Yeah.
But then when we talk about repressive laws, and perhaps maybe we can just spend a bit of time there.
Yeah.
And I've also heard you say that when it gets to election time, it seems like we set aside all these laws, and it looks like a free fall for all of us. And imagine, as we had there, always telltale signs that this is going to happen. Are we seeing it now?
Absolutely. The indicators for violence are very much alive with us. And that is why in my introductory remarks I said the 2022 election has comparable risks to 2013 and 2017. The various boxes, the various indicators that were as far back as 2007, the level of intolerance, the level of incitement. And now we actually have the social media that can distribute whatever insightful message from any politician within an hour, and it's reached all over the country. Now, there are comparable risks that that are very evident. There's clear early warning signs, clear indicators that if left unchecked and unaddressed, then the problem is they will ultimately lead to violence. Yeah.
Very important. Let's pick it from there, because the government currently what they're doing, and the Interior Cabinet Secretary said this about a fortnight or so ago, that they're marking hotspot. That is not my problem. My problem is the government moving a year before the election, mapping hotspots, which means it's imminent. We can say it coming, Commissioner. Yes.
Yes. It is coming. Hotspots are there. We've also mapped them as a commission.
Okay.
And we've put strategies in place how to manage with hotspots all over the country, across the counties. I agree with my brother Felix that the red flags are all over for violence. But as a country, we must wake up and deal with those red flags. If we don't, as he said, the happenings that we are seeing now, 1 year to the elections, are similar to the ones we saw in 2017 and even 2007.
Really?
Yeah, some of them.
They say 2007 was spontaneous.
No.
They say it was spontaneous.
2007?
Yes, because we argue about this.
I will tell you.
But they say it was spontaneous.
I will tell you.
Because it was after the swearing in.
No. I will tell you.
Yes.
I will tell you. There were a lot of happenings before even we voted. And we didn't manage it as a country.
Okay.
We squandered that opportunity.
Is it because we didn't have law to manage it?
We had all the laws around.
Okay.
Okay? But when we said one tribe against all the other tribes.
40 against 1.
All right? What were we doing?
Stirring emotions?
Yes. We saw it. The podium was also nasty. The microphone had a lot of nasty hearings. People talked hate speech, limitless. All things were said.
So it was a ticking time bomb.
So it was a ticking time bomb, but we assumed it.
When we say we, because we're looking to where we get a solution, I really
we as
want
Kenyans
to
should
know.
have nipped this at that point.
Yes, when you say we assumed it, who assumed it?
Well, the government
of the day. President Kibaki's government.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the institutions, who have been mandated to handle those things.
At that time, NCIC did not exist. We agree.
No, it didn't exist. It was born out of the violence.
Yes, right.
So the hate speech was at the apex. Tribalism was at the apex. Intolerance was skyrocketing. I mean, all things happened. And when you say one tribe against all the other guys, you know, all other tribes, it was the epitome of this and this and this and this will happen. You know? So intolerance was built until the day of voting climax, okay?
So by the time President Kibaki was being sworn, the deal was done.
The deal was done.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing called spontaneous in that kind of thing. How, you know, people have been organized. You know, people have been told what to do.
And even that one tribe also had armed itself against
40.
The 40.
Yes.
So I would agree.
That argument about spontaneous, ladies and gentlemen, if we take it now, we won't finish it. We will agree.
Yes.
Because the question is, what if the results went the other way? Would it have happened? Exactly. That's why it's spontaneous. But let me come to the man of God. And Reverend, I want to ask you a political question about the people. You said earlier that you have to take the blame to the people. Because one, there's a say, so rest in peace. One time she said, Kenyans deserve the leaders they like. So, yeah, they get to the office, they have. So the political question tonight is, why must we blame the people for their democratic right to vote and put leaders of choice in their office? And these leaders, like you said, during Kibaki's government, they failed to take charge.
Well, I think it's, I'll use the analogy of the coin that has three sides. We have to blame the public because we tend to vote our leaders on tribal lines. That's one. And even when those politicians are maybe caught doing corrupt things, we are the same people who say, this is our thief. So that blame should go to the people. Surely we suffer because we give ourselves bad leadership. However, the leaders take the biggest blame. Because today, if you look at the political leader that you voted for in the general election, he's not the same person. There's something that drastically happens when people get into leadership. Maybe you used to talk to them during the electioneering period, the campaigns, but immediately phones change and you see them starting to behave very differently. And I think there is some coaching that happens, and we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, when somebody bribes me and gives me money, how will they recover that money? So what I'm simply doing is I'm eating the money, but I know this person will use their leadership positions to enrich themselves. And so we are in a very bad cycle. We can blame ourselves, we can blame the leadership. But if the leadership so decided that this country will be different, they can. What I find even worse is sometimes religious people, like me, or even Muslims, or whoever, it doesn't matter. They say they are going to vie for political leadership in the name of trying to save. They become the savior of the people. Let me tell you, those people, later, trying to get them, to hold them to accountable, even for us as a church, it becomes such a problem. And that's why, Ken, I had said earlier, the problem to me here is societal. Our education system doesn't base, it's based on academic performance. It's not based on value at all. Look at most of the preaching that happens. It is not based on values. And I think I liked what happened yesterday by the Archbishop. I think I need to bring...
It's a big conversation.
It is a big conversation. That yesterday he was able to draw a line. He has been advising. In the past he has. Even me from the All Saints Cathedral. Because we work together. We have been saying this should not happen. But yesterday what the Archbishop did was to practice what he has been warning us about. Because I think what the church has realized is if they don't draw the line now, in January next year, they will not be able to draw that line. And you can imagine if clergy in the Anglican Church and the bishops followed the bishop's directive, in 2-3 months we'll have created a new culture within the Anglican Church. Archbishop Muheria followed. The two archbishops guided two biggest church institutions. So you can imagine if the NCCK, the EAK, the Catholic Conference of Bishops came together and did only two things. One, ban politicians. Because this intolerance you are talking about is brewed in religious places. So if the church alone can say that, if the Muslim body can say the same...
Muslims have spoken. Yes. They don't even need to speak further.
No. Yes. Speaking is not enough. What the Archbishop did yesterday was now to draw a line.
They drew the line long ago.
So you can imagine if all the religious institutions did the same, do you know, maybe half of the problem will have been solved in
Reverend,
this country.
You are intolerant to politicians who come to church.
Oh, is that intolerance?
It's called...
Let me ask you.
You're not tolerating
The Muslims have been intolerant also.
We don't have a problem because
however, I have seen a Muslim come to church to do politics.
Yes.
I can prove that. He knows.
Okay.
So the same Muslim who will not speak in their mosque because there is space in church, he comes there.
Okay.
So it's not that they are better than the others. All of them are corrupt people.
Okay.
But let me tell you about intolerance towards politicians.
You're not tolerating them.
No, listen. You know, in church, I don't have politicians. The same way I don't have engineers, the same way I don't have doctors.
Worshippers.
Me, I have only worshippers.
Okay.
The moment as a pastor, as a priest, I started seeing people in the lenses of their profession. That's where the problem begins. So the two archbishops said what yesterday? You are only a worshipper. The fact that you want to come to church to speak, that's where the problem begins. Because church, in the liturgical order, the only person who speaks is the priest, and that is the sermon.
Okay.
So we are not intolerant. You're only bringing your politics in the wrong place.
Up on what you've said that perhaps if a good percentage of churches follow suit, then we would have sought a very big chunk of the problem. But some would argue, these things they would say in church, they would say them anyway.
No. There are two institutions, according to me, that if they said no to bad politics, will heal this nation. Number one is the media. You go to a church or even to a mosque, the imam or the priest does very good sermon. Do you know the media will not cover them? The media has been hijacked by the politicians. So let's not just look at the church or the religious institutions, let's look at the media that has been hijacked. The report, Ken, you are reading there, the media played also a big role in perpetuating hate speeches. Because when you focus on a politician who is speaking against the other, what you are doing, you are actually perpetuating it. So the media can say no to bad politics. The second one is the religious institutions. If the two did that, especially during this time of COVID, politicians have nowhere to speak about those things.
Sanity.
It's called the separation of church and state. Yes. It's not actually being intolerant to politicians.
No.
The United States...
I said you're not tolerating the politicians.
You're tolerating the politician. America had this
They're
debate
only putting it in the right place.
America had this debate in the 60s. And I think President John F. Kennedy then gave a very powerful speech, drawing a very clear distinction, speech that is really, really widely celebrated, and that is the separation of church and state, and he said it's absolute. So politicians cannot use the church platform as a campaign platform, and in our context, to perpetuate hate speech. So I support personally the decision that was taken by the church.
And you know what, Ken, just to add on my brother, me, if I wanted to say something in a political rally as a priest, I would not be allowed.
They'll tell you to pray and sit down.
Yes.
Pray.
So,
exactly. The prayers will be very short.
And make them very short. Yes. In fact, I have been in such.
Yes.
You are told to write. But then they want to come and buy the right to speak. I think yesterday, if you consider yourself a worshipper, go to church. If you don't consider yourself a worshipper, stay at home. It's fine. But you can't come speaking against the other person in a religious institution. Correct. We must exorcise the demon at the altar.
But we have allowed this to happen for such a long time.
And we need to take, I'll take the blame. Where the church or religious institution have gone wrong, let's accept. No, you see, and we have gone through different presidencies. During the Moi era, KANU was the party. And so the religious institution, especially the Catholics, the Anglicans, and the Presbyterians, were the voice of reason.
Sure.
And we needed that. Now, when we came to the Kibaki presidency, Kibaki was not much interested in politics. He would even go to church and he would not without speaking. And I think slowly we started allowing, in the name of project, we allowed politicians.
And Mchango.
Yes, I think that's where we got it.
Okay.
But can I also correct an impression here that has been created all over in the media that politicians sustain the church? That's wrong. That is not true. I have been in church for 25 years. Maybe their percentage is 0.01%.
So you can do without.
The church can be sustained by the members, and by definition, the church is sustained by the membership.
The Vatican is a state.
You know, Ken,
for example.
Political gatherings are very expensive.
Sure.
And Kenyan politicians have found free gatherings.
The cheapest.
Right?
Yeah.
Or cheapest.
Yes.
That is the church, funerals.
Free crowd.
Free crowd. And I think that culture has to change in this country. The pulpit and the member should be a no-go zone for politicians. The member is the opposite of the pulpit.
Okay, that's in the mosque.
Yes. And the funerals.
Yes.
And the funerals.
Yeah.
I mean, you fight over a mourning family. We have gone so low in society that you can punch each other in front of a mourning family. That is where we have gone.
To make your political point.
Make your political point.
Goals.
You know, across to the wananchi. So I think politicians must not be given these free crowds. They must create their own crowds.
Sure.
And they must pay for it. And so now that Sepita has led, he has done, he has beat the bullet. All others must follow. So that the sanity in the church.
Understood.
And then next we plan on what to do in the funerals.
Okay.
But thank God COVID is dealing with that for you. The constriction of crowds and the numbers.
Sizable crowds around funerals
Still, the temptation is big.
It's as big.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick it up from something you said earlier. I think all of you can agree that you're seeing the red flags. And you talked about the red flags that you're seeing, and we could even be worse than what has been seen before in the electoral cycles. NCIC is right at the center of ensuring cohesion and integration in our society. You've talked about, lately I've had, I saw the VC talk, the Vice Chairperson talk about setting up monitoring teams on social media, because that is proving to be another monster in itself. Yes. And you can talk to us about that. But also I saw Kobia say, the chairperson, that we will get politicians to sign, I think they termed it as a code of conduct.
Charter.
And we have a whole plan on this particular election period. I think something bila norma, and you'll correct me on that. Do you see all these interventions working in the run-up to 2022?
Yes.
Can you confidently say that this will help bring down the tensions?
We have a whole pool of personnel that are real-time monitoring hate speech on social media. Some of the notorious persons in the country, whether they are bloggers, whether they are supporters of a political group, are being monitored real-time. You know, a certain staff is attached to a certain person, certain blogger or certain politician. So we are monitoring social media. Social media has proved to be a hard nut to crack because people are using pseudonyms, names that are not theirs. But we found a way out of that. We are working with the Communication Authority of Kenya. We are working with the DCI. We are able to circumvent that and find the real person who is doing that. And it has worked. So many under investigation at the moment. For the preparation for the elections 2022, we have put in place what we are calling elections bila norma.
Yes.
Uchaguzi bila norma. Okay? It's a strategy that we are using to make sure that we have election-free, violence-free election. And really, one of the strategies we want to use is the one you mentioned, that we want to, first of all, hold symposia at the national level. We want to bring the players of politics to symposiums, you know, so that we talk about our country. We talk about how we want to go into 2022. And at the end of the day, we want the political leaders, the party leaders, and those who are running for offices to sign that contract, the charter, you know, to commit to peaceful and decency campaign.
Otherwise,
and if they don't?
Yes. Otherwise,
now, you know, otherwise we will use the available laws. But, you know, for you to be credible presidential candidate, you must be able to sign that code.
We have already established that the laws are insufficient. That's why you are asking for more powers.
Yeah, but you see, we want commitment from them. We want to show Kenyans that they are committed to decency, they are committed to peaceful coexistence, they are committed to the welfare of the people they want to vote from.
Commissioner, that's the 6 elective seats, or just the presidency?
All
of them.
All of them.
You haven't answered my question and Akisa's question. Otherwise, if I don't, if I sign and tomorrow I'm at the podium,
and Commissioner, anyone can sign.
Of course, individually, you will carry your own cross. We apply the necessary laws. We apply the necessary pressures. We have put in place what we call the multi-agency consortium that will deal with these people who will be breaking the law. We brought DPP on board. We brought the Registrar of Political Parties. We brought IEBC. We have brought the judiciary, EACC, NCIC, and DCI, and all of us are working together to make sure that we behave like you saw how a lion eat the buffalo.
Everyone's scrambling for the piece of the carpet.
Yeah, so we want to scramble for a part of that, so that we can bring it down. Okay. So that is what we are trying to put in place, because if, as you said, some of the laws are insufficient, then we collect all the laws and bring them together so that they have a cumulative effect at the end of the day. So if we want to invoke, for example, Chapter 6 of the Constitution,
Which is the most trampled upon chapter of our constitution.
I think that
and
is
the shortest chapter, deliberately by politicians. They made it shorter.
I think that is anchored in EACC, and we will tell them to invoke that section properly. For example, IEBC has the mandate to give us the time campaigns begin. They should deal.
IEBC, would they give the timeline?
They do. They do. They have already given it, actually.
It's prescribed in the law.
It's prescribed in the law.
But we started politicking
immediately after
leaders were sworn. Immediately leaders were sworn.
They started the
campaigns.
So we need to, all of us, all agencies, all government departments, all institutions, to do their part, so that cumulatively we deal with this problem. I always believe if everybody did his bit,
Played their bit.
yes, if media played its bit, the religious bodies, religious bodies played their bit, the NCIC plays its bit, ESC does the same, the police does the same, judiciary, everybody plays his. I mean, this country will be.
I think for the first time, I hear a formula that is likely to work. And I'm hoping it works in the next election, right? I'm really hoping it works. But Felix, let me ask you, listening to the commissioner, we have been flagged, red zones have been flagged. They know where electoral violence is likely to emanate from. I bring it back. Are they being proactive or reactive? It's a trick question, Felix.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
It
Are
is.
they being, because they are mapped, they put strategies in place? So are they reacting or they're proactive?
A little bit of both. And this is why. In terms of hotspots, I think in as much as we normally say that every election is different from the other, but in every election since 2007, we can safely say with certainty areas or counties that can be classified as hotspots. There are only two criteria. One, and especially if we look at it from the perspective of presidential election, is areas that are predominantly violent in every election. And if you look at Kenya, you can almost say that in every election since 1992, evidence or indicators of violence or early warnings have been there, and they usually happen. Now, the second criteria is areas that will most likely experience competitive elections. And if you look at what is happening in Mount Kenya region right now as we speak, traditionally, the central province has been very peaceful in the past election. But if you look at the current jostle that we are seeing in Mount Kenya region, then that puts Mount Kenya into a hotspot category. But then if you look at it for other elective seats, particularly the gubernatorial, there are 21 counties that governors will not be seeking re-election. You can imagine the heightened stakes that are in those counties, and the counties that governors will be seeking re-election, like for example Kisumu, where Nyong'o is serving his first term, and a few others. So the stakes in those counties will naturally be high. So by formulating these hotspots, I think, and designing these intervention strategies that Commissioner is saying, it speaks to me as a proactive strategy of doing it. But we should remember that some of these have been there with us in previous elections. I attended a conference where a senior IEBC official said that 2022 election will be very credible because we have prepared an election operations plan. And I'm like, we had an election operations plan in 2007,
White and black.
2013, and 2017.
It's always been there.
It's always been there. So it's not a new thing. I saw the chairman, and I really respect the chairman. I think he's tried to do some good work, saying that the servers will now be domiciled in Kenya and not in France, and that will cure election technology challenges. It doesn't work that way.
Some people think
the
it's
fundamental way it's not that simple. And I like the multi-state agency approach.
Yeah.
I think for 2022 to happen in a credible and non-violent way, I think all agencies, including the media, must play their role. There is an opportunity that I really wish to flag as I conclude. We lost an opportunity in 2002 in terms of the intolerance in this country. In 2002, there was the perception that Luos, Luhyas, and a few others would not vote for Kibaki. The country was united as one under President Kibaki. Yes. And I think in Luo Nyanza we voted for Kibaki. People voted for Kibaki more than even in Central Province and in Western Province and so on and so forth. Now, it is very rare for history to repeat itself. Now, 2022 offers us a very unique opportunity. For the first time since 1992, Central Kenya has never voted outside of Central Kenya. In other words, not voted for another presidential candidate. In 92, Matiba Kibaki. 97, Kibaki. 2002, Kibaki Uhuru. 2007, Kibaki. 2013, Uhuru. 2017, Uhuru. Now, something is happening in this country, where for the first time, the largest population in this country does not have a presidential candidate. The largest population in this country is going to do something they've never done before and vote outside of their community. Now, this has to be nurtured. This has to be managed well, because if we manage it well, we lost the opportunity in 2002. I can guarantee you this country will have, there would be more than, tribal or ethnicity and things like that in our elections.
So how do we go about managing it? What do we need to do?
I think, and a lot of work would have to be done. Now, the president will have to play a role, in my opinion. There is an opportunity that President Uhuru Kenyatta is not seeking a re-election. I think this peace campaign that we are talking about, he has to go out there. He has to confer a legacy of peace, pretty much like President Moi did in 2002. And I think the country will deal with him favorably. Politicians and political parties should come with a better platform and ideologies than what is the current divisive rhetoric that we are seeing. You've seen a lot of, like, for example, I think we really need to think through policies. Things like hustlers. Say, for example, a policy that pits class versus people, class wars, as you're calling it. And it's very rampant in Central as we speak. It should not be there. I think it's a unique opportunity. Let's manage it well. Let political parties and politicians campaign on the basis of policies and ideologies. And I think we will then, looking in a few years to come, not have squandered this opportunity.
Reverend, listening to Felix, and of course I think you'll comment on that, we keep going back to the question of tribe, the question of ethnicity, and I think you've mentioned that as well. But that is how our politics has been indoctrinated for a very long time. It's not possible to move away from that right now, is it?
Well, I don't think our generation will cure this. Now, the tragedy in this country is the generation of our children are not very interested in politics.
For sure.
So we don't know where we are headed. That after us, our children may not. I don't know what kind of politics they will do. But let me follow on his line of thought. While I agree that we have an opportunity this time to have the Kikuyu nation, if we would call them, to vote outside the Kikuyu land, which is something good, to support other communities, because it's not a must that you have a president from one area. But when you have a president who promises his deputy that after zangu kumi, zako kumi, and they were very popular in Central Kenya, then you start changing, and we know already now it's in the public domain that the deputy and the president are in conflict. The other one, the deputy has taken advantage and gone to Central Kenya, and the Hustler Nation has been sold fully, and the sympathy votes that come with that, that is very, very dangerous. And I don't know the wisdom that the president will use in taming those kind of rhetorics of classism and tribalism. But let me also follow up by saying this. I think one of the weaknesses of our democracy is even the government institutions are not loyal to the nation, they are loyal to their political leaders. You remember when the United States had a problem with Trump refusing to get out of State House, what I read was for the staff in White House, they knew on that particular day their loyalty shifts immediately.
Yes.
Ours, even when you see tribalism and other isms entrenched fully in government, is because we are never loyal to the institutions and the government and the nation. We are loyal, and that's why when a new government comes, it comes with its own people. But those institutions have been there and they needed to be strengthened. And so I see the biggest challenge is to strengthen that. Now, the last comment is about the chapter 6. I wish we took time since the last election. The 5 years were enough, because EACC's work is not just to apprehend people and they go around the door there and come out and nothing happens.
The revolving door.
Two things needed to have happened. Number one is to see some 5 senior guys in prison. That is the only way you can send a strong message that you can't be corrupt in this country. You will go to jail. Look at developed democracies. People end up in jail. In Kenya, people don't end up in jail. Number 2, the ethics part is now chapter 6. Work with the religious institutions. Educate people. What does ethics mean? Don't wait until it is a few months to the elections. Then you start now teaching people about the caliber of leaders that we need, and you have never implemented on chapter 6.
Can I pick it from?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, as we said, the red flags are all over. But you ask the question, what can we do about them? As NCIC, we're thinking of several strategies contained in the elections Bilanoma. But on top of that, we must enhance civic education in our country. We must talk to our people. We must tell Kenyans the truth of the matter. We must tell Kenyans not to be misused by politicians.
Sure.
We must tell Kenyans on how to behave election results, whether they go their way or not. Because at the end of the day, the losers are the wananchi, the voters themselves. And so we need to triple the civic education and sensitization that we want to do in the country. That's our daily business as NCIC. But we ask all other stakeholders to come so that we convert our people, not to be used, because at the end of the day they will be the losers. Yes. One time I was doing civic education, I think in 2010 in Kisumu, and you know some of the chilling stories we hear from survivors of the post-election violence. I mean, Kenyans, if they knew those things happened, they will not have repeated. There's a lady who left Naivasha.
Yeah.
And she told me in Tom Mboya Hall College that the only thing she came with of her whole family, children, husband, everything, was the head of her husband in a baby bag.
It's terrible.
It is that bad.
Yeah, it happened.
And we're playing around with it. So as a country, we must up our game. We must talk to our people and tell them the reality of life, and so that they are educated. Secondly, our politicians must tone down their psychophancy levels. It is too much. The insults are too much. You know, we've reached a level where when we can belt stones on the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya.
Sure. Fortunate.
Next, it will be the president.
Very unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. Yeah. So we see somebody on a clip insulting the first family. We have gone extremes. Those are the red flags that we are talking about. So the sycophancy tones must come down.
Correct.
And you know,
are you asking
we're telling
the right of the rights to be limited under the Constitution, because free expression. Yes.
There's a difference between free expression.
I can express myself.
Yeah,
those
but
people you're talking
within
about,
limits
and responsibility.
So long as you don't trample on my rights.
Yes.
Someone says
your
rights begin where
mine ends.
Yes.
So are you asking still? Are you asking that if we have to get this right, we need to limit rights?
Yes.
You're asking.
Not rights.
Yes.
We must limit, you know, trampling on the rights of others. You can have your rights, but it shouldn't affect me.
How do you draw that line? I'm not getting it. How do you draw that line? Yes, it's a thin line.
To a lot of people.
What if I insult you?
Happens all the time.
But is that
because I am allowed
freedom?
To express my mind.
Is that freedom?
I'm allowed to express my mind.
No, but you have a limit. You have a responsibility.
A responsibility, not a limit. You have a responsibility.
The responsibility.
It's a moral question.
Yes.
The responsibility limits you. It's a moral question. You have a boundary in life as a person that you say, I can't cross here. This is my limit. I can't do it.
Difficult question. As an individual who is insulting, they have no boundaries. That's why they're insulting. Yeah. So how do we create this boundary?
We are telling
by limiting their rights?
We are telling them to have boundaries. We are telling them to limit themselves.
You're asking someone who has no boundary already to have a boundary to limit themselves.
We can still talk to them because they are our brethren.
It's an ongoing conversation.
It's a gradual thing.
Okay.
You can't change a country in a day.
Yes.
So it's a process. So we must tone down.
Okay.
You know, I'll give you a story in Islam. The Prophet one time told his companions, don't insult your mother. How do I insult my mother? Then he told them, you insult the mother of Cain, he will insult yours. So similarly here, don't insult
someone else's mother.
Someone else, politician or candidate, because you will be insulted. So sycophancy must be toned down.
I should ask this, maybe...
the other thing is, historically our political parties were tribal. We ask them now, this time, for them to be leaders of,
the tribal chiefs,
leaders of national
parties.
They should come with parties that are of national look.
Okay.
They should get out of the tribal parties.
Fair enough.
So that the issues of them versus us. Let's not come back to us severally.
That brings me to my next question. You've talked about we will ask them, we will do symposiums, we will do civic education for Kenyans. But let's be honest, as long as our politics and our elections are a do-or-die situation, devolution was meant to cure that, but counties, as you've said, are another battleground altogether. So as long as our elections are a do-or-die, do you see us get there? We're still seemingly dealing with the same problem that keeps mutating after every cycle.
Absolutely not. And part of the, as you are highlighting what Waki Commission found, the growing power. And Waki was referring to the presidency, the inherent presidential powers.
Yes.
One of the reasons why the Kenyan Constitution has been hailed as progressive was the expectation that it dealt with the presidential powers in two ways. One was to reconfigure the state through devolution. Now, the problem with that in hindsight, or what we have been able to achieve, is that we took powers from the presidency and concentrated it. It's called the concentration of power. Concentrated it at the hands of governors. But substantial power still remained at the presidency. And that is why even right now as we speak, the fight of who will be the president is intense, is heightened. Now there's a danger also in Kenya or in the 2022 elections. The possibility of having two leading presidential candidates with almost equal incumbent privileges or incumbent powers. Deputy President William Ruto is the deputy president. He has his tentacles in government, the deep state and everything else. Now, assuming Prime Minister Raila Odinga is supported by the state, that is also another state power. Now, that is an election that is more complex than we've ever dealt with in the past. Both candidates will demonstrate or will possess serious deep pockets to be able to use it for all manner of things, including buying, mobilizing youth or mobilization for violence. So that sometimes worries me, because we have two presidential candidates with almost equal incumbency privileges or incumbency powers.
And one being the student of the other.
Well, I would comment on that. Then, of course, what we also never succeeded in achieving, or at least the experimentation with the 2010 Constitution, is that the doctrine of separation of power as designed in the new Constitution, with checks and balances, that was also expected to reduce the presidential powers, has not really succeeded.
No.
Parliament, for all intents and purposes, is an appendage of the executive. So we are still dealing with that problem that Waki identified and that you pointed out. Now, the problem that we are having now is this. It has been dispersed from the presidency to the gubernatorial seats. And if you may, to the MCS seat, other than the gubernatorial elections, the next most fiercely contested election is going to be MCS. My MCA drives a Prado, and all MCAs, Kindubei Town Ward, and almost every MCA in Karachuonyo. Now, what that means is this. People can see how that position has changed fortunes. So it means it's going to attract a lot of candidates. I think in one ward, it's probably 22 candidates who have expressed interest that they're going to run for MCS position. So we are dealing with that problem. The Constitution of Kenya is very well written in that regard, but I must say it's the transformative and progressive elements of the Constitution have not been fully realized within the context of elections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps as we near the now, perhaps the question that I will ask you from the pulpit: is there hope for this country, especially heading into 2022? Is there hope, and do we still have time to realize that hope?
Well, if the church doesn't have hope, I don't know, then who will have hope? There is hope.
There's hope.
The gospel that we preach is a gospel of peace, and that is doable. And I was consulting with the Archbishop today, and one of the things that the church will use is the church was the first to be devolved before the government. If churches in Kenya, and now extending even to the Muslims, would the pulpit preach peace? One of the things I told members of the cathedral recently is do not forward a hate speech message.
In the WhatsApp groups?
Yes, don't. I told them your Christian integrity in the next 1 year will be measured by what you forward to other people. You see, that is a very small thing. Because the other day I received a video and I watched it, and my wife wanted me to pass it to her, and I told her, this one? No. Because I wouldn't even want the children to see. Because it is crafted towards a certain person. And I have also received others that are being used against another person. We, as a church, will continue to speak to our people about political tolerance.
Okay.
We will encourage people, listen to all the politicians. It is you to sieve and see who has content or not. We will encourage them that it is their right to be able to vote. We will also help them in identifying proper leaders. And Chapter 6 is powerful. We don't need to go outside of Chapter 6 of the Constitution and helping them by enumerating down what it requires of a leader. I think what we will be doing now moving forward is bringing religious bodies, the Interreligious Council, bringing the EAK, the Catholic Bishops Conference, the NCCK together so that we start speaking. Okay. There's time actually, but we need to move with speed.
I need to ask two more questions to you. How interested is the church in the peace that we can get in 2022? How much interest, if you were to gauge and say the church is very interested, moderately interested, how interested is the church in this peace?
The church is highly interested.
Highly interested.
Because we know that this nation, even the church, or let me talk of religious, the entire nation. Yes. And I keep using Rwanda. If you have been to Rwanda, you will see when the Hutus and Tutsis were fighting each other, one of the institutions that was affected badly in Rwanda was the church.
Yes.
And so the society must come out and speak against intolerance.
Highly interested. The last question is this. If allowing politicians back to the pulpit will achieve this peace, will you?
No.
Okay.
Let's draw a line.
You'll draw a line there. You're very interested in the peace, but if it will take allowing politicians to come back to speak in church, it's a no.
No, but we can use other platforms. We can meet in a field or in a hotel or wherever.
Not church.
Let's talk.
The line is clear.
The line. Yesterday, we drew a line between the pulpit and the pews.
Okay.
I think let's get the closing remarks. We don't have too much time.
Yes.
Would you confidently tell the Kenyans watching tonight that the strategies that the NCIC is putting in place will get us to a better place than we were in the last election cycles? Can you confidently vouch for that?
Very much. We can vouch for that. And we've already achieved results in areas that are deemed to be red flags for violence in 2022. With our civic education, with our wall of fame and shame, with our involvement in monitoring social media, our investigative arm, we have lowered hate speech. In fact, hate speech in Kenya has gone down since the Pangani 6, if you can remember.
2016.
It has gone down.
Yes, 2016.
Since that time, yes, it has gone down. And the day we brought the wall of fame and shame, it went down again. Because some politicians said we are parents, we have a future. We don't want our names to be everywhere, you know? So with that, we have brought down hate speech and incitement. We have a purpose to devolve ourselves to the counties. We can't go to every county, but we are going to the former regions of Kenya, the former provinces, the 8
of them.
And one more extra office in Rift Valley. Proactiveness to make sure that we are at the grassroots in doing our work.
Okay.
And so we are working with the multi-agency I talked about. So there's a host of...
Please work with the interreligious community.
Include them.
Let me tell you,
left out.
We have not left out the religious organizations. They are number one in our list. We have not left out the business community because they will be affected most.
Yeah.
We are working with the security agencies. We are working with the other constitutional offices. So I told you this is a holistic thing, so that we move this country to a peaceful election, and even after the 2022 elections.
We need to wind up. Maybe you'll have the last word here. Is there a reset button? Do you see it?
I still have my doubts. I think we still need to do a lot of things as a country. I'm very optimistic that we can, even within the last year to the elections, we can still manage it. A lot of initiatives are currently underway. The multi-agency that has been spoken to. So the Interior Minister sees also laying down certain provisions. But very quickly, institutions must work. If we are to secure a credible 2022 elections, then institutions must work, beginning with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Sure. That is the elephant in the room. Granted, we now have a full commission. There is a lot of initiatives that are happening. They need to work. Political parties must work, and finally, the voters must be able to know that if we ban this country, then we all will die.
And the judiciary as well.
And the judiciary.
Well, this is not a conversation.
Unless you have, you know, we're even saying the judiciary should get out of their comfort zone. In our discussion at the commission, we were asking them to come to the counties to monitor how elections are being done, so that when they come to the court later on,
they know what happened.
They know what happened.
Okay. Nice.
We're also telling the prominent, eminent persons of Africa not to come at the tail end of a problem, but they come now and work with us and warn us now, so that they can work with us. So there are a lot of initiatives we're doing behind the scenes, so that there's no kalele in this country.
I told you this time they look like they have concrete answers.
We'll have you back here.
Remember the election is next year.
Yeah, we will have you back here.
Yes. We are prepared for that.
Thank you so much. And I think that's how we wrap it up here, gentlemen. Thank you for staying with us since, was it 8:30 p.m.? Yes. Quite a long conversation, but very important. And I imagine these few hours are not enough to really break down some of the issues in the country, but we really appreciate you for coming here today. We can go on, but the show must end. Abdulaziz Farah, Commissioner, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, thank you so much for coming. Reverend Sami Maina was my apologies, was a provost at the All Saints Cathedral, and Felix Odhiambo, Executive Director, Electoral Law and Governance Institute for Africa. Thank you very much. And my co-host, Kanmi Jungo, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time here on Kivumbi 2022 as we continue with our series on issues to do with elections. I am Akisa Wandera. Do have a good night.